Hello, I'm Nathan Wolcott, and this is my project titled The Nature of Movement. I'm going to take you on a tour of Italy, Greece, and England and show you how the various religious structures there kind of direct your movement. So here we are walking into the Pantheon in Rome. This is just a shot of the front. As you can see, the classical temple front. Here we're walking through the doors and you can see the congestion. Mainly there's just a lot of people, but second, aside from the thing directly in front of us, there's really no place of prominence, so there's really no direction to head once you get in. You're free to look around and see all the things that you want to, honestly. Whether it's the ceiling at the Oculus, if you want to catch a glimpse at that, or if you just want to look around and see all of these paintings and statues. It's really a very freeing environment because there's no hallways, there's no enclosed areas really. It's all open to the viewer, and here in a circular shot you'll see that there's about 7 niches, one with the big niche that contains the altar, and then 7 of these altars put in by Pope Clement XII. Those wouldn't have been there, but statues would have been able to sit there. Now we're at the Church of St. Mary of the Altar of Heaven. This is an outside shot. You can see that it's positioned at the top of quite a few stairs. This is the interior, and the bottom right you can see me just kind of walking the floor, the things that you would have walked over. And to your right and left you can make out the colonnades of the old basilica that this church was built on. That's Ryan to the left. He's a cool guy. Now I'm coming up to the altar, and this is a cool sight to see. If you'll look, you can see the gold figures around it of angels. You can also see angel statues on the right. The inscription reads, Queen of the Altar of Heaven, which is their emphasis with this church. Mary is, the Queen of the Altar of Heaven. So this altar really says what this church is about. It's beautifully done. Here is the shot of the upper parts where the windows let in the light. Obviously there's not a lot of electricity in this place, but you can see just how ornate it is. And then again you can see the chandeliers towering over the altar itself, and just pictures of saints and past priests of this church. You can see in the Pantheon and in the Church of the Altar of Heaven, they utilize art, area, and architecture fairly well in portraying their message. We got the message of the Pantheon, we've gotten the message of the Church of the Altar of Heaven, and so now we're going to move on to Greece, and here we're going to see some new structures, but they're going to use these 3 aspects in similar ways. The Parthenon in Athens is situated on top of the Acropolis in Athens. It is only approachable from one side, and this is the side that the group and I are walking up right now. Here you can see the Propylaea, and this is an interesting feature. You have to climb up these steps that are white limestone. They're very reflective of the sun rays, or would have been if they're not so polluted. But you can see that there's kind of a processional feel. You have to kind of do a switchback, climb up these steps, go through this gate into a sacred area, and you're entering a huge gate, not into a city but to a temenos, which is the sacred precinct of the Parthenon and the Erechtheion. So this is the Parthenon, and you can see that they're doing reconstructions to give you an idea of what it once was. Some people don't like that, others do. But the main thing to see here is the metopes that they've made replicas of, so you can see. And they've also put replicas of pediments that the dirty British stole. The pediment would have shown the contest between Athena and Poseidon for the patronage of Athens. So you can see the narrative art that's on the structure, and there's a lot of it. And this gives you a sense of what this structure is about before you even set foot in it. And whenever you do set foot in it, you get more of an understanding of what it's about. You would see the Chryselephantine statue of Athena pictured here, and this is the closest replica there is, I guess. So use your imagination, imagine that as gold and ivory, and it's just enormous. All this is to say that the Parthenon, through area architecture and art, really gives you a sense of what it's about, what the Athenians prize, what they don't prize, and essentially why they're called Athens and not Poseidonins. So this is the monastery of St. Demetrius of the Egg. It is nestled way up in the hills. You can see an aerial shot here. It is just way far away from civilization. Even the Fantasy had trouble getting up here, and believe you me, it was scary. So here I am walking up the steps to the front door of this monastery. Notice as I come inside that it is very Spartan existence. The walls aren't painted, the doors are very short, except that one. That one's actually regular size. But to the right, here in a second, you'll see how small the doors are. The reason they're so small is because every time you go through them, you actually have to bow your head, and that's a sign of penance. This says a lot about the type of person who would choose this lifestyle. It's far from civilization, and so they're giving up modern conveniences, and they're also giving up relationships with people for a relationship with God, or at least a deeper relationship with God. So here I'm on the next level, and you'll see some pieces of art, but it's really just abandoned pieces of artwork. They were left here by the monks, and honestly there's nothing stopping us from plundering it other than moral values, which thankfully I had. So as I'm exiting, I'll show you a terrifying moment of my life. A bat just flew at me, and it's about to fly at Billy. You'll see it pass at the lower left hand of the screen. There it is, size of a bear, huge. After I regained my composure, I went back to the room, and like I said, it was just art, but there was also oil for burning kerosene candles. This wouldn't have been a bedroom, it would have been a room for something else, but definitely not for sleeping because it's way too big for a monk's bedroom. Here is the chapel in the monastery. It is really the only decorated place in this monastery. You can see the frescoes on the wall, and they're just caked with smoke and really show the years of use that this place has undergone. You can't see now, but there is very high ceilings in this place, higher than any other place. It actually takes up 2 full stories, which, it's a meeting place, and it's not designed for penance, it's designed for worship. And really, what's interesting is you see just the rundown nature of it with all the smoke and all the kind of grossness on the walls, but this is a place of worship, and it's not a place of decoration. They're not trying to impress anyone. This is a functional area of the monastery, just like everything else is functional. It's not superfluous decoration like you might see in other monasteries or other churches. So we've seen temples and churches in Italy and Greece, and now we're going to look at the cathedral, which is kind of the culmination of temples and churches, and we'll see this in England. Lastly, I arrived in Durham, England, where I got to visit Durham Cathedral, and the cathedral is a new kind of chapter in the temples and churches story. The Normans took the idea of architecture, art, and area and kind of took it to another level. They did this by, first off, building a monumental structure that completely dominates the scene, but they also added a 4th element, which is sound. You can hear it starting to come up, but those are bells. And these bells rang during church services, they rang every hour on the hour, but let me tell you, they are loud, and they really do dominate the city of Durham. It's really hard even holding on a conversation when these are just blaring in your ears. This is one of the reasons why this cathedral is so dominant. The town actually sprung up around the cathedral, and the cathedral itself does not let the town forget its existence at all. So Durham Cathedral is kind of the culmination of all of these things we've seen happening with the Pantheon, the Altar of Heaven, St. Demetrius of the Egg, and the Parthenon. We see a tremendous utilization of area in the fact that, the town doesn't exist without the cathedral. We've also seen how it directs movement with the use of sound as well as with the use of architecture. And the art inside also conveys the message of the cathedral. You see the emphasis on saints, you see the emphasis on Mary. So really the cathedral is kind of taking all the ideas we've gotten from temples and churches and really putting them all into one nice, huge structure. So after witnessing all of these sites, we can see that the nonverbals of these places speak much louder than a tour guide can. The architecture can direct our movement, so can the art, and the area can give us such a good picture of the theology that the structure itself represents. So really, you're not visiting these structures and wandering around aimlessly. You are getting a feel for them as they share their message with you.